I'll try to take out some of the experiences from our projects and try to share them with you so that collectively as a community of practice, we can try to understand this complex and wicked problem around how soils can be kept alive, and therefore keeping humans and ecology alive. So what is it that we have been doing on sustainable soils in the on-farm context? In the context of 2008 and 9, when priority sector lending was not taking off, and most rural businesses were being created through welfare subsidies and were not surviving too long, except for good partners where the NGOs did some good work. So working very closely with many NGO partners, channel partners, what has happened is that about basically the basic loan models have been created through actually testing them on the ground. So as I speak, we have now done NABARD and GIZ and KFW about 340 odd businesses, which are the first time startups, most of them in the most vulnerable pockets of India. If you put it on the CREDA atlas, 93% of these groups have returned their loans. So this whole figment or the myth around that NRM financing is inherently unstable and is dangerous for banking, I think there's enough evidence to show it isn't so. The other interesting one is a Green Innovation Center approach, which is an approach being tried in Africa and India at the same time. Here the idea is to take some specific value chains and start all the way from farmer's field and go all the way till the processing and see what do you need to do at every level. Ideas to promote, create innovations around equipment, around small machines, bring private funding into it, bring private technology into it, but mostly work with government and state partners through FPOs to develop practices that can be scaled up all over the country. The focus, of course, in this case is on tomatoes and potatoes. The experiences from India are also feeding into the experience into Africa and vice versa. How did it start? Now, this one is another global project where we work very closely with NABARD again as a partner. It goes on till 21. It's in Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh for the time being. Now here the idea is to actually create innovative practices, packages on soil conservation, rehabilitation, test them at a watershed level and then scale them up to the district and state level. Now already in the few years of work, the numbers have been impressive. The role of the agriculture universities especially stands out. And I think not looking at water while talking about soil is one part of the problem. Now basically, if you remember, there was a Mission Water Conservation, which was a very interesting piece of guideline. 3 ministries, rural development, water resources, agriculture, came together and they identified 2,000 plus depleted blocks in crisis in India, and they said we have to work together. This guideline made it statutory that in these blocks, 65% of the MG NREGA allocation should be spent on NRM. So as we speak, there are about 240 works of MG NREGA as a menu, out of which more than 120 are on NRM, 70 are totally focused on water. So we worked very closely with NRSC and MORD. We looked at the Bhuvan portal, which was not being used at that point of time. And we found that just taking 6 or 7 layers of spatial imagery from that makes far more sense to a farmer than all the data and statistics and numbers we can put out. So we created a system of what we call e-Saksham, which ministry is now rolled out to the whole country. It's a joint product, we work together. Using this methodology, the ministry this year asked every block in India that at least 2 panchayats should plan using this GIS imagery. So about 32,000 out of 65,000 technical practitioners of MG NREGA have already done this MOOC and learned. So now as we speak, about more than 14,000 panchayats from all over India and 10,000 panchayats in Rajasthan, their labor budget for this year is actually based on GIS plans. A lot of the works around this are on soil improvement, vegetation improvement, water carriage, water conservation, land leveling even in cases of some families. We are now working, saying that without Ministry of Jal Shakti and Ministry of Rural Development, MG NREGA, cracking their heads together on this, we cannot take this water to the next level. The problem is, whoever does very good work on this part of the watershed, what happens above it or below it totally undermines it. And this is only one part of the story. Whatever we do on the surface, what is happening to the ground? And if the ground part is also not talking to the surface and there's no climate perspective on it, then a lot of the stuff that we're doing will be perfect in a small space, but in the larger picture, we may not be doing the right thing. So this program is about trying to find out together, can we find a sub-basin size? The river basin is too big, it's too political. Can we come down to the level of a sub-basin where the watersheds plants can all integrate? For any of this to work, and we all know, all of us are people with a lot of experience here, no one department can do it. You have to have agriculture, canal, minor irrigation, rural development, you name it, even industry department, because what happens to the water withdrawal? Now, how do you bring these people together? So what we're doing is, already we've done it in a few districts, is align this sub-watershed or this sub-basin as much as possible to the office of a district collector. Because that's the only person or the only institution in India, even state cannot converge. I'm sorry, we can talk, we can plan, but the actual implementation or design of convergence most effectively can happen only at a level of a district, where a district collector, through his fiat or her fiat, can push things. So actually there are resources, we just don't know how to put them together, because there's no one agreed plan. Every department has their own plan. Now just a few points which could be also something for me to engage you people to think further. It is important that we look at the economics of it, and anything that we do around soil has to have a business value proposition which makes sense to the farmer. So it's only when we're able to get departments to sit and work together. And the other important, of course, is not just irrigation efficiency. How can we use energy? That's the third nexus, and we have to talk about the soil, water and energy nexus. Only then can some changes happen. I think any planning that we do has to look at what has happened in the past, pull that into the plan, and make sure how this new thing works together as old and new. Now, if surface soil temperatures are going to exceed 48 degrees for weeks and weeks, what will happen to soil fertility? How do we look at the canopy parts? So there are aspects of this which you would need to look at different agroclimatic zones and structure a bit as well. And like I said, it's convergence. I think unless we get our act together, it's already quite late. I think it's also time to look at agroecological policy. Unless the policy pulls ecology together, I don't think Forest Department would be interested to come also on board. Unless we start looking at ecosystem of services and payment for those services, it will not happen. So I think this, if we are looking at policy, I would also suggest, and we are willing to work on that, how agroecological aspects of policy can be strengthened. Thank you very much.